Why do you care what time it is?
No, well, because I'm actually...
It's not like anybody's going to cut us off.
No.
Unless you got something else to do. I don't
nervous.
know. You trying to run a business or something?
I'm trying. I put a sign on the door that says open from 12 to 6.
We better be done with this by 12 because I don't think I can talk for that long.
But I want to make sure I have Erin's number ready to go.
Oh, I think I'm hooked up to the Bluetooth.
Good.
So you can just give it to me later.
Later? Do you have her number?
I don't know.
Oh, Jesus.
We'll find it.
All righty.
Let's not take up an inordinate amount of time.
Yes.
Shall we?
We shall.
Because I record all this beginning part.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. This mic is too high.
I'm not high at all. What are you talking about?
Welcome.
What?
I'm just getting ready here.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Jesus Christ.
Welcome to Recovery in the Middle Ages, the podcast about two middle-aged suburban dads and their pursuit of life, love, and recovery. I'm Nat.
And I'm Mike.
And today...
Yeah, you didn't do it.
Well,
you didn't put it in there.
What? Boy, do we have a show for you.
Boy,
do we have a show for you. Today on RMA, it's Get Smart with Erin Moore as we continue to wrestle with the dark side of rehab, as depicted in the new film Body Brokers that we reviewed in episode 29.
Which was last week, in case for those keeping track at home.
Right. Visit us at middleagesrecovery.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more. Join us on our private and exclusive Facebook group to wax intellectual and philosophical with me, Mike, and only the coolest RMA fans.
A selection of memes of farm animals having sex.
Hey, it's free, so why not join the discussion? Great reviews will be read on the show. Open your Apple Podcast app, find our podcast, and, quote, write a review. Please give us 5 stars as it helps RMA rank higher and reach more sick and suffering middle-aged addicts.
Love it. Can I just say that in addition to all of that sort of social media stuff, one of the best ways for you to get the word out or help us get the word out about recovering in the Middle Ages is very simple. Just tell a friend. Tell a friend in recovery. When you're standing outside the AA meeting wondering if you should go in because it's not really working for you and people are walking by you, say, hey, I have this great podcast that you should listen to.
Or if you're on one of these groups online and...
that helps too.
People are like, I don't know what to do. You're like, here's what you do. You listen to RMA.
Right. But don't make us the cornerstone of your recovery, please.
No, please. Hey, do we actually have a review?
I think we do.
Oh.
Should I read it?
I think you should.
Okay, this is from Alex, who recommends recovery in the Middle Ages. I guess that's what says recommends. Okay. I'm a little younger than the targeted demographic. Nonetheless, I relate to everything being talked about. I couldn't have found this podcast at a better time. It really gave me the second wind I needed to not pick up. I binged all the episodes in about 3 days. Holy fuck.
Well, I didn't actually see that.
That's like a lot of RMA coming into your ear holes. It was so freeing to have it coming in my ear holes all during the day. I also very much got into This Naked Mind per their recommendation. I'm so much happier now that I stepped away from AA and ventured into more current methods. I'm very thankful for this podcast and what it's done for me in such a short period of time. I've been sober for almost 2 years, and I'm very much looking forward to a life without substances. Thank you for the time and effort spent. It doesn't go unnoticed and is very much appreciated and encourages change and inspires hope for a better way to freedom.
Yeah,
yes.
That is
Thanks,
so great.
Alex D. We really appreciate hearing from you.
And especially, I appreciate that he, referenced the coming in the ear holes comment, which I didn't think anybody would pay attention to. I said it once. It was one time. I figured no one's going to hear that.
It was so gross, though, that it's stuck in everyone's head.
It's traumatizing, this traumatizing imagery. Thank you so much, Alex. That is so awesome. And when I do the target audiences for Facebook, I've been lowering the age threshold because I'm thinking maybe...
How low can we go?
Hell, it's like, underage limbo. So thank you so much. You could also tell us your story by submitting it at middleagesrecovery.com. You could be a guest on the show, or we could, more likely, we'll read it. But thank you guys so much. And Alex, that awesome review you wrote on Facebook, go to Apple Podcasts.
Yeah,
5 stars. Yeah, cut and paste it. That's because we really want that, the search engine spider food.
That helps us grow in the rankings. More people will find us. Our budget will increase, and we'll be able to have all sorts of amazing events and merchandise.
Yes,
and all that
merchandising.
Stuff. Right.
Spaceballs the flamethrower. Spaceballs reference is that?
No. I'm middle aged, but somehow that movie got by me.
Well, you're 10 years older than me,
right?
So from my generation,
elderly, really, almost.
I would say so. You qualify to get a vaccine. That's how
I do.
That's how I measure how old and infirm someone is, by how soon they got. Unless there are frontliners, but
not that there are any around.
See, I don't have the sports store owners don't have a powerful lobby in Washington.
I mean, you are a public-facing person.
And I've been
think
facing tons of public. In fact, one of the things, just getting to what kind of crazy weeks we've both had.
Yeah.
For the past, 6 months since we started this or more, I have been in the middle of a shutdown basically for my shop. And so I've had all this extra time when I should have been planning for the future. I was working on this podcast and amongst other things. And now all of a sudden, everybody locally is out and they're panic buying like sports stuff because the local leagues have sprung this on everyone. They dragged fall sports into, okay, we're going to do a truncated season at the same time as winter sports. And we're going to cram it in right before spring season.
Yeah.
And so that means the spring season, clinics meet now. So it's insanity. And luckily I have a bunch of inventory because I stocked up for last spring and it just didn't happen. But I just am not ready for it. On top of it, I'm finishing my college degree and I had a midterm. And but the good news is I was invited to set up a pop-up shop at the big baseball clinic.
Yeah.
And there was hundreds of people there juggling.
Oh yeah.
So I was just pantomiming to Mike that.
Well, I drove by and I saw you at your little table there hawking your wares, and at the moment I drove by, you happened to be juggling. I was like, wow, now there's a guy that knows how to work a crowd, how to get somebody to buy some cup protectors. And
I'm surrounded by hundreds of children and families and stuff, and it was me, my wife, and my kids, and they were doing baseball clinic, but when they weren't, they were helping sell stuff, and it was just really exciting. And I got this high. I felt high. I should reset my days because I felt so good and so hopeful and happy. And it just took one conversation with my father to knock it all down.
Parents are great for that, aren't they?
I was in such a good mood. I'm like, Dad, we might save the shop. And then he's like, well, what did you look at the numbers, before the pandemic? It was not looking so good then either, huh? And I'm like, he's not wrong, but... it was on an upward trend. And, they say you have to be in business 3 years in retail to establish yourself and to really, and that's really what it feels like. It feels like now I'm getting a lot of respect and from local people who are like, everybody else went out of business in this small town, but not Ned.
Respect is good, but you also need customers.
Yeah. Customers. And we've had lots, but yes, it can't last. And
I was listening to a thing on one of these financial podcasts I listened to, and they were talking about GameStop. You remember we talked about that a little bit. The stock was up through the roof because the Wall Street bets and the Reddit people decided that they were going to make it into something. But GameStop just released their quarterly earnings the other day, and the guy who was leading was like, I guess the main point of the story is that not everybody that bought GameStop stock actually shopped or bought anything at GameStop. So, hype is one thing, right? But you need bodies. But you've been doing good, right? You get steady traffic here. A lot of people coming in, buying.
I'll just give you an example. For the past year, let's say, I've been maxing out at maybe 2 or 3 customers per day.
Right.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. On the Friday before the clinic, we had 32.
Wow. Holy shit.
32. And when I say 32 customers, that means it's a mom and her 3 children.
Right.
And then a dad and his 2 children come in. They both want to try on cleats or something. And it's just me.
Right.
I handle it quite well, but listen, if I could keep that up year round, which I can't because it's seasonal, that
would be
I would
fantastic.
retire. But in any case, it's like, I was talking to my wife about this, the seasonal depression disorder. I feel like, especially my wife, she was just commenting, like, because she's been in a rut. She's been feeling down.
Mm-hmm.
She's a teacher, like your wife, and it's just been so hard on them. And the weather in New York is
it's just been miserable.
It's been miserable, and now everything that is converging into this like positive like upswing, like a universal manic upswing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it feels like. And the sun is out, and people are happy, and vaccines are coming, and it's just like this amazing feeling, and it's great. And am I talking too much? Yes. Also, you know what?
You never talk too much.
I kept. Last thing I want to say about myself, as you know, I'm a egomaniac with an inferiority complex, right? So, I was going to just make one more comment about my diet and exercise regimen.
Yeah.
So I was updating everybody, I guess, last week about how I just stopped eating. And I lost 25 pounds. And Excellent. So now, and besides that, I've been doing like 200 push-ups a day. I haven't used the special push-up machine you got me.
Okay.
But I'm going to. But up until...
I didn't use it either. That's why
I'm going
That's
to
why you now own it.
So I've been doing crazy push-ups, and I've lost all this weight, and I'm looking a lot better.
You're very buff.
But I still, like now that I'm in my 40s, it's a little saggy. I'm a little disappointed in my physique. I'm like, what the?
I think
when does your skin come back?
Oh, the skin never comes back.
And what's with the middle-aged paunch? No matter how much fat I lose, I'm still going to be skinny fat guy.
Yeah. Well,
what do I have to do? What do I have to eat or not eat?
You're asking the wrong guy. I've had a middle-aged paunch since I was like 21.
I can't. It's very demoralizing. But I feel better. I feel like my testosterone, my natural testosterone. It's another thing. I am not resorting to steroids, okay? And I'm very proud of myself for that. But my natural testosterone just from exercising is coming back.
Yeah.
And so overall... I highly recommend diet and exercise. Oh, you've noticed my sex drive has returned?
It's crazy. Yeah, bouncing off the walls in here.
Yes, well, it's mostly caffeine.
That's true.
So spring break.
Well, the other thing, before we get to spring break, is you were just talking about your overwhelming schedule of the other day. And, I dropped this thing on you like 2 days before, which was this Boy Scout meeting, which, of course, was the night before your midterm,
right? And I was supposed to study with somebody.
So we had to take the kids over to this this Boy Scout meeting, and there was like 30 kids, and they were all sitting, and they made the Weeblos, who were the younger kids that we brought to the meeting, because this was one of the requirements for them to move up to Boy Scouts, is that they go and they sit in on an actual Boy Scout meeting. So we went to the one in our town, which is the big troop. There's like 35 kids there. And Nat and I, of course, are sitting in the back of the room, just, bullshitting and not paying any attention to what goes on. And then all of a sudden, they started making the kids get up one by one and introduce themselves. And then you said...
Hi, my name is Nat, and I'm in Weeblo.
Yeah.
It was just like an AA meeting, the kids standing up and
admitting that there were Weeblos.
Yeah.
Like, hi,
I'm like, and it was just like an AA meeting, because the Boy Scout meetings have like, there's a preamble, and there's certain, like, just like a corporate meeting type of thing. And all I could think about was, this is just like an AA meeting, but it's Weeblos.
Does anybody like to share their experience of being a Weeblo?
My experience... Before I joined the Weeblos, I was drinking 6 cartons of Capri Sun a day.
But I'll tell you, man, I go to that meeting, and I look around, and there's all these dads who are like, talk about testosterone.
Yes.
I mean, it definitely attracts a certain kind of,
like, former paramilitary or wanting to be military.
Right, or current police officers. I know a couple are current police officers. And it's just a very weird dynamic, because you and I are not like that.
No.
But...
You've got more street cred with the Cub Scouts than I do. You actually have, and I've always admired this about you. Before we even got to know each other, I would see you because we go to Cub Scout meetings, and you had the adult shirt,
Yeah,
you know,
I got
and
the shirt.
But I was like,
I'm play acting.
But it's cool. I think I like that. I think I want to get one of those, but I can't bring myself to order one. I don't know why. It's just one of those mental blocks. So yes, you have a little more cred, but you're right. We are the polar opposite of
of that
those guys.
We do not have. I do not own a pickup truck. You don't either.
No.
We don't have those the American flag stuck on the back or
with the blue line.
With the blue line.
I don't have that.
Yeah, it's just
I respect it.
Yeah, it's not our thing. We have different interests.
Our interests are doing a recovery podcast and playing Dungeons and Dragons.
So I'm trying to envision myself like next year going camping with these manly guys. And
we've been there before.
We have, but
we didn't have each other really.
No, and everybody was drinking back then. But these guys don't seem like they're very sort of by the book Boy Scouts,
which makes me feel
men.
A little better.
Yes.
These guys are more serious.
The drinking stuff made me very uncomfortable, even when I was drinking. I did not like the idea it was being done around the kids.
I felt weird about it too,
which will play into our recovery in the news discussion later on.
Yeah. And it was cool, and the kids did a great job, and I feel like they were actually, because my son and another particular child in the group, not your son, but this other one.
The one that I made you pick up.
The one that you made me pick up and drop off.
Yeah.
But they're pretty bit, they don't have an easy time sitting down and shutting up.
Right.
And I think just seeing the seriousness of all the adults and even the kids running the meeting, shocked them into silence. I don't know if that was trauma.
They were well behaved, and everybody was until the last 10 minutes, and then even Ben got up and started running around, just
they had been
shrieking.
They'd been sitting for an hour listening to this and learning how to pitch a tent.
They're 10.
It was cool, but I don't know. Things have been going so well. We were talking about this, and we're feeling good, and things are going well with the podcast, and it's so exciting. And you and I were talking, and then sort of I was thinking, this is great, so long as I don't sabotage it. Right? This is usually the time in my sober count where things are going too well, and my addict brain says to myself, it's going too well.
Right.
It's time to destroy your life again and start over, repeat the cycle. And that's my history, if you look back on it. So
I think that's relatively common among people in our situation. No, I think a lot of it's grounded in fear of success.
Why don't? And I've had this conversation with psychiatrists and therapists and
right.
And it's coming down to why don't you feel like you deserve the life you have? And I don't know if and I've been struggling with that. And is it important to know why? Sort of if your house is on fire, you don't ask why, you just run out of the burning house.
You run out of the burning house, but on your way out, you also think about grabbing the family jewels and whatnot.
The family jewels.
So to speak.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
But so, I don't know. I mean, fear of success, it's all tied up in self-esteem. What was that thing you just said before, that AA thing?
The egomaniac with an inferiority complex.
See? I mean, there's a lot of that going in on there. But just don't fuck it up. Right?
Don't fuck it up. I don't want to. Yeah. And we were talking, this is actually goes perfect with accountability and anonymity.
Oh, yeah.
Anonymity. Have you ever been to an AA meeting and they have to read the preamble? And
people have trouble with
nobody
that word.
Can say, they're like, anonymity.
Yep.
And so we were sort of talking about that. There's a lot of accountability now that you and I, if we are both at a Cub Scout thing,
right,
and there is a drink going around, and and I know that we don't drink,
right,
and
that's huge, very important.
And so that's one of the benefits to not being anonymous in some ways. My neighbors know, who I hang out with, that I don't drink. They don't know the details, and they don't need to, but they're aware that it is just not a line I don't cross for whatever reason. And because of that, if they saw me drinking in a bar in town or something, they would. And it goes back to when I went to pick up the beer for my neighbor.
Right.
I know there's accountability, and because everybody knows me, and I'm known mostly now because, I don't partake, and that creates accountability. Now, were I anonymous, I would be like undercover alcoholic, and I could,
Well, I don't think anonymous means
what you think
that
it means?
nobody knows. I think anonymous. You can be anonymous on the level of film, media. Right? What is it? What
media.
is the thing? Yeah. Well, and
You're anonymous.
I am,
and I am as well.
You are sort of
until you told your friend who is my son's dad, and then
it's your son's. He's your son's dad.
No, I'm his son. I'm
Shit,
my son's dad,
that.
And he's my son's friend's dad.
Right. Well, okay, and I felt bad about that, but this is a long story. But anyway,
we save that for story time.
No, we can talk about it. I mean, because I mentioned this guy a couple times in the last few weeks, and now I feel like I shouldn't have because he's apparently informed me.
Remember
that he's listening to the What?
That's exactly.
Yeah, he's listening to the podcast, and
which is great.
Thank
you for listening.
He drinks, and that's his. He just sent me this thing that said, it's probably a good thing to know people who are in recovery and don't drink. And I thought, sure, why not? I mean, my wife probably drinks a little less because she's, because
the problem,
I don't drink. Which is, speaking of just a quick diversion.
Yeah.
My wife is on a diet. And it's a diet where it involves eating lots of raw vegetables and no oil or anything that tastes good.
Right.
So I've been since I do the cooking around the house, I've been sort of forced to, I don't know,
cater to the.
I don't know.
To
Cater's
the
not the right word. Just adjust things so that
cater is the perfect word.
I've lost like
preparing food.
I've lost like 4 pounds.
Really?
I haven't done anything.
Changing your diet.
It's great. I guess I'm changing my diet, but I'm not really thinking about it. That's the best way to lose weight by not thinking about it.
There you go. You just try and be happy.
Anyway, but now that was quick diversion. But back to the anonymity and my friend who listens to the podcast. Yes, I did mention that you were my podcast partner and that you ran the sporting goods store in town.
And that my name is Nat.
And that your name is Nat. But I never thought he would listen to the podcast. The guy's got a kegerator in his living room. I'm like, he's not going to listen to a recovery podcast. But I guess you never know,
Yeah.
But I spoke to him. I said, anonymity, and he's really he swears your secret's safe with him. And his son is also on your baseball team, so you'll see him at the games.
I almost don't want you to point him out, so I don't think about this.
Well, I'm not going to say his kid's name in the air,
but no, we're happy to have all listeners. And one of the problems, now let me say what the problem is. When you go to AA or you go to group meetings, outpatient, there is a standard that they make very clear that what you see here, what we say here, please let it stay here. And then everyone says here. And that's understood. When you're outside of the safety of those kinds of mutual agreement society type things, now you're dealing with nobody perfectly adheres to that stuff. They always tell their wife whatever, but there's nothing like that protecting us when we're telling other people who aren't involved in these things and don't maybe necessarily understand the concept of mutual anonymity. And therein lies the problem. It's a little bit of anxiety, but honestly, I'm comfortable with who I am. And I'm not ashamed really of my past. I feel like it's a strength and it's something that I can, help other people to know, like maybe if they think, hey, Nat's got it together, he would never have this kind of problem and they're struggling with it. It would be great for them to know, you know what, I did struggle with that and probably worse. And it doesn't have to define you and you can recover from it.
Yeah.
You can be recovered. ED.
Exactly.
Recovered.
I don't particularly care if people in town know that I don't drink anymore. Why don't you drink? The only reason I maintain my anonymity in this podcast is work. And I think if I'm going to sit here and I'm actually going to this is a little more sharing than most people do. Yeah. Right? Putting something out into media land and actively encouraging thousands of people to listen to it. Right?
Literally thousands.
So do I want my boss hearing all my crack stories from the 80s and then deciding whether he wants me as the public face of his company? Yeah, probably not. So I think you could choose the level of anonymity. Now I like this Paul Churchill from Recovery Elevator wrote a book called Alcohol is Shit, and I think we're planning on reviewing that at some point.
Love that book.
It's a great book. But
he's hard to listen to sometimes.
Yeah, he reads the book himself, and he's a little like...
I know.
He's a little woo-woo sometimes.
Kind of a space cadet, but very smart, very insightful, just like the Annie Grace book. And and whose show you're actually going to finally appear on.
I'm back on there on the 22nd.
So that's exciting for us.
I don't know when it's going to be released, but holding on to Paul Churchill for a minute. In his book, he is very big on not being anonymous. His concept, he calls it right. He calls it burning the ships, and basically what that means is, I guess, when one of the conquistadors drove up to the New World in order to sort of encourage the men that you're not going to be able to go home. There's no safe place for you.
You better win.
He told them to burn the ships, and then that was it. They had no way to go back, so they had to just stay and do the job.
Omar from Share Podcast says that a lot.
Burn the ships.
Burn the ships.
Does he come out of recovery elevator? Maybe.
No, he didn't. They were at the same time. He's done anyway. He stopped doing his podcast.
Did
he got into some other consulting.
Well, so I think I'm okay. In general, if people knowing that I don't drink or use drugs is an entree for them to find a way of not doing it for themselves, I am happy to share my experience, strength, and hope with them, so to speak.
Very AA
but
with you.
I do not need my boss knowing my business.
Right. And so therein lies the nuanced recovery program.
Yeah. Spring break? Were we going to get to that?
Spring break. Well, yeah, because did we talk about Mexico?
No.
So, hey, everybody. Spring break is here.
Yay.
Isn't there like a people cheering? Which... Yeah. How did you do that?
I just Bluetoothed it through the...
That's so fancy.
Through the YouTube.
Oh, wow. We're getting fancy over here. The kids are off. If you're parents, you go by your child's schedule. And my kids are off. Your kids are off.
Starting
your wife
after
is
school
off
today. Yes.
So there's a big spring break. A lot of people, even though we're in a pandemic, are crazy enough to get on a plane and go to a very dangerous country run by MS-13 and a corrupt government with a growth industry known as kidnapping.
Don't be a slave to the media.
So is that what you're doing? Are you going away for spring break?
Listen, I struggled with this for a long time about whether or not we should go anywhere. And I thought about Florida and just decided that wasn't really the place to go. And apparently that was a good decision considering the Miami police are tear gassing vacationers and making them stay in their hotel rooms. But we had this trip planned for last year. And then, of course, we had to cancel because everything went south. So almost on a whim, my wife and I decided to rebook and go. She got the vaccine, so she was, she's good to go. My kids are really not... there's not a lot of transmission on planes. My kids are not really in danger. I am the only one that could conceivably die, and I've decided that the risk is worth it because I need to go scuba diving at some point.
Sounds like my wife. She'd like do anything to take a vacation.
Yeah.
And, I'm with her on it at this point.
The interesting thing for me, though, is that this is one of these all-inclusive resorts in Mexico, very safe, very, COVID, I want to say COVID friendly.
Friendly
to
COVID.
You know what I mean? But it occurred to me recently that I've never gone on this type of vacation while not drinking before.
Oh, this will be a test.
Because, the first year of sobriety is like a year of firsts, right? The first Christmas not drinking, the first 4th of July, the first birthday, the first work thing, whatever. So I got through all those, but I never went through the first, big vacation because we just never had it. Now I'm at like a year and 7 months, and here it is. So I'm not really concerned that I'm going to drink, although
what's your plan though?
My plan is to number one, my plan is to do the podcast next week from the resort, so there's some accountability. I realize the audio is not going to be good because I was testing a few things yesterday and none of them really worked that well.
There's definitely a way to do it.
There is. I'm just not bringing this microphone to Mexico, so the mic is going to be either a lavalier that I have
put it in Erin's purse or something. You can say it's a back massager.
That's a good one. Wait. No. Shit. Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't had to use that one.
I know.
Because nothing's been funny. We haven't said anything funny.
Everything's been very dark and serious lately.
True. Everybody's, So I don't know. My plan is to is to not drink. But
you need a more specific plan, man.
Well, okay.
Like, okay, let me give you a scenario.
I'm planning on drinking a lot of virgin daiquiris.
Well, okay, scenario number one.
Right.
You're hanging out by the pool or the beach, and Cabana Boy's bringing Erin like a juicy looking strawberry daiquiri with a shot of rum floating on top. And he, just for some reason, he got you one too. You didn't even ask for it, hands it to you. What do you do?
I just make Erin drink too.
So you take it off, pretend like it's yours, and then hand it to Erin.
I mean, or just send it back. I mean, it's all inclusive.
And what will you say? These are the things you have to think about. Just no
Can
thanks.
I have a Coke instead? Can I get a virgin pina colada?
Can I make a recommendation?
Yeah.
On the first time they offer you an alcoholic drink, you say that time, no, please, I don't drink. And then, can you bring me a this? And this way, now he knows and doesn't go on. I do that at weddings.
Yeah.
The first time they come and fill your thing.
Right. Yeah,
no,
that's a good idea.
I don't drink.
I'm going to do that.
Here's one more that I got. When you're at the dinner or at one of these events, if they ever come back, they have the wine glasses at the table. What you do is you flip it over.
Right.
That's the universal sign of I'm a degenerate alcoholic, and I may tear my pants off and vomit on the bride.
When I worked as a waiter, I remember seeing that a lot.
Yeah. And are you going to call me?
Of course.
Not just for the show?
I'll probably text you every day anyway.
Yeah.
It's got me thinking a little bit, and I really like that suggestion that you just gave, because it means I only have to make one decision.
Yes.
I don't have to every time be confronted with the fact that this guy's bringing me a daiquiri.
Assuming he understands you, but say it in Spanish.
And I was thinking about that this morning. Like, you text me at like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night when I'm usually in bed.
I know. I'm sorry.
I tend to text you at 5 o'clock in the morning when I'm out running. And I hope after the
I don't wake you up, do I?
No.
Okay,
did I wake you up? After like the fourth text, I was like, I hope he's got his phone on silent or something, because otherwise his wife is going to be really pissed at me. So I texted you this thing this morning that was, what did I say? Decision fatigue. Every time you have to make the decision to not drink, it takes mental energy. Is it on here? Did I miss it?
Spring break, Mike stress dealing with the
fatigue.
Mexico fiasco. Right. One day at a time versus long-term decision fatigue. And maybe means yes.
I really like to find that. Here it is. Okay. Maybe means yes, and decision fatigue leads to maybe. I heard that on a podcast this morning about people talking about. And that got me to thinking about this whole one day at a time business, like where you have to physically decide or mentally decide every day or every minute or every hour. Yeah, this is it. Sorry, that was the opening line from the theme song. I don't know if anybody got that, but wouldn't it be simpler to just make a long-term decision that you're not going to drink rather than have to every day confront the decision?
Well, it's a two-parter. You do that, of course. You say, listen, I don't... Well, they always tell you that. Like, when you first come into recovery, you'll say, I can't imagine never drinking again. I can't imagine not drinking watching football. And these are the things I said, too. And they always tell you, you don't have to not drink for the rest of your life today. Okay, so it's you take that one day at a time with the overall like desire, like that. I don't want to be a drinker. You have to just like it's not something that I think of as a reward. And
right. Well, that's
and then in the moment.
Right. Well, you change your mind eventually, I guess, about the pros and cons.
Yeah, which I have, and it's amazing.
That's a cognitive thing, but I think it's dangerous, and to me, it seems dangerous in the early days to have that maybe hanging out there. Like instead of saying I can't drink, it doesn't work with my brain or my biochemistry, so I'm putting it down. Like I'm allergic to eggs, I'm not going to eat eggs anymore. It's like you don't have to decide. Like I'm not going to eat an egg today, maybe I'll eat one tomorrow.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You have to.
It's like a mental
trick,
I guess.
You have to exactly, and I think you hear this a lot in recovery. If I have one drink, I know I will die, and they don't mean they sip and die. They mean that it'll set them on a collision course with doom.
Right.
If they start drinking, they can't stop.
Sure.
So that's that mindset. Where that's where it's a good thing to have this like shocked into like you can't drink no matter what, like be in the no matter what club, don't drink no matter what.
Right.
And then when you get your head clear, then you can start thinking a little more. because your mind is back to getting normalized,
Right.
And it's not. When you're first trying to get sober, your brain ain't right. You ain't thinking right.
That's true.
They always say, well, your best thinking got you in here, right? I always say that. So shut up, put the cotton take it out of your ears and put it in your mouth. Something like that. That's what they say. Take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth.
We could have that debate, but it's for another time and place. Where are we with?
I think our guest is just about ready.
Okay. Our guest is about ready.
Dude, so
this
cue
is
it up.
Great. So what I have to do now is make that phone call. Okay, before I call her, let's just sort of set the stage about what we're going to be talking about, because the people may not have listened last week, or they may not remember what we talked about last week, which was the new movie Body Brokers.
Right. Following up last week's movie review of Body Brokers.
Yes.
Erin joins us to discuss her thoughts and research on the practice of body brokering, junkie hunting, and the overall plague of the predatory rehabilitation industry.
Junkie hunting sounds like a video game from the 80s.
It would be cool. Like called Narc.
Like Paperboy or something. Yeah. All right, so should I call now?
And now, Recovery in the Middle Ages is proud to present Get Smart with Erin Moore.
Is that loud? It's loud in my ear.
Hello.
Hello, Erin.
Hi.
This is...
Who is it?
This is
Not Mike.
Recovery in the Middle Ages calling.
Get Smart with Erin Moore. What's up, Erin?
What's up? Not much. It's been a crazy couple of weeks, but I'm super excited to be back with y'all.
And we're super excited to have you back. I hope it sounds like you got a lot on your plate lately.
Yes, what's going on?
Well, it's good. Yeah, not any more than anyone else, but going from having very little, right, through quarantine to kind of back to full swing or close to it, right, is it's a big change. So forgot what it was like to have to wear shoes all day.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
Pants for that matter.
Yeah, you got to put pants on.
A bra. I mean, I know I'm talking to guys, but I think you can at least understand because you have wives.
Yeah, I never wore a bra to work, so I can't relate to that.
You should consider it.
I'm going to need one.
It's supportive. If you need some extra support, that's where you're going to find it.
Well, I don't know. Nat's new diet, he doesn't need any support. He's rocking an A cup.
A sandwich.
Yeah.
You got to CrossFit and you'll be set.
That's it. Hey, well, we're very excited to have you on. And let me just say that Erin has put together this amazing, she's going along with this outline idea. And I think because she's got the same kind of brain that we have, which is maybe everything is kind of scattered. And so we have to put it down on an outline. Otherwise, for me anyway.
You're projecting that?
Yes, I'm projecting. I'm sorry. I'm just going to stop. But, we watched that Body Brokers movie, and then we thought, man, this is a great opportunity for Erin to just kind of dig into what's going on with this, with the rehab industry and whatnot. So what did you find out?
Well, what I found out, some of it was firsthand.
Oh, wow.
And some of it is, really well documented, especially in the last several years. But my experience with body or benefits or patient brokering, started when I was in treatment back in the early 90s. And it's with a facility that still, practices that way. And but one of the first indications of it was in 1970. I found an article about the program I was in, which I can refrain to name if you like. It's kind of up to you, but
it's up to you. You can name it or not.
I mean, it's well known.
We're naming names. We're going to name names.
So it's part of their practice. Phoenix House is one of the biggest treatment organizations in the country and one of the longest standing. But they they were basically a branch off of the Church of Synanon, or what became known as the Cult of Synanon. Anyway. They were, they kind of buried the lead a little bit and started their own program, which doesn't have a lot of well-known connection. It's not well-known, their connection to Synanon, or not to this point. But it's starting to be partially because of all the interest in the troubled teen industry. But so with them, one of the practices that was covered in New York Times that they were trying to investigate, and this article actually is the first one was from 1970. This particular one was from 1973, and it stated part of it said Sanford Garelick, president of the city council, charged yesterday that Phoenix House, a program to fight drug addiction, had been recruiting addicts from outside the state for treatment here and had been putting them on welfare.
Right. I saw a documentary on that. That was...
Yeah, and that's kind of known as, that's kind of known general, like in a broad sense as body or patient brokering, but specifically it's starting to be referred to as benefits brokering because these programs, one of the best things is when they can find someone who's privately insured.
Right.
But if they're not, they get them on, jackpot. Yeah. And I've worked in the mental health industry. I remember when you get a patient every once in a while that had insurance and it was like, you could really send them anywhere they wanted to go. Because they could be billed, at a higher rate than someone who was privately, or publicly, funded. And most of Phoenix House, specifically, they're at least 95% state, county and federally funded.
Wow. And that's
and so usually they still, back then they were still, those of us with insurance, charging the state for our care.
Yeah, it's interesting because back in the 70s, there was much more robust social safety net.
Really?
Oh yeah, there was more cash assistance back then. So I would imagine the focus of Synanon and Phoenix House back then was getting people on public assistance and then just sort of sucking up the public assistance money that came in.
Right, and, taking 10 foster kids just to get the check.
But now, like with the Affordable Care Act, there's more private money out there, and you can sort of feed at that trough now. And I guess they had the expertise having fed at the public trough in the 70s. I don't know. That's just seems like that's what.
No, that's true. That's true. And that's where, the questions really came in why was the emphasis so heavily on recruiting people from out of state, or, really trying to arrange it, putting them on food stamps, welfare, all of that goes to facility. But the clients are also expected to work for their bed, right? If you think about it that way. So that's where all the work, the labor law violations are coming in. Because one, the client is almost never seeing that money.
Right.
Even if they're working for a giant company that's not related to the system. And so the treatment center, especially if they're a therapeutic community and work, labor is part of their treatment.
Right. Like prison, they do that.
It's like prison labor.
Yep, and Phoenix House, one of their biggest contracts is with corrections.
Wow.
It's a probation and parole alternative a lot of times, and for us, it was for adolescents too.
So they can hang that they can hang that prison sentence over your head if you don't want to go work 60 hours a week, power washing, whatever. They could say they'll just report you to the court and back you go, right? So it really is coercive.
100%. Yeah, 100%. It was even in our rules, like our handbook, which I still have. But yes, if you're there as a sentencing alternative or a probation or parole alternative, then that it'll be similar to drug court, where if you do well, it's great, right? But if you don't, your sentence is probably going to become longer if you're kicked out of that program, because then you've violated your parole or probation, even if the rule was, even if it was that you didn't like the abuse. And that's where a lot, them specifically, but a lot of these programs have been sued by inmates over the decades, many, like dozens of lawsuits, just civil rights lawsuits to be able to go back to prison.
Yeah, I mean, I dealt with that on a different level when I was on probation for my DWI, where basically it was tied up. My sentence was tied up with having to be in these in New York. It's called OASIS, is the acronym for the government agency that approves these things. And in order for me to complete my probation and get my freedom back, it was required that I complete one of these outpatient programs. And I was really like struggling with it. I was completely unable to. And anytime I had one screw up, it meant I was going to jail. And eventually I did. Now that's my fault, I guess, because I was incapable of getting sober at the time. But I really felt like, I got arrested for drunk driving, but then I was punished for being an addict because the terms of the probation were such. And in the meantime, I kept having to go back to these rehabs and go back to these outpatients until I, satisfied all of their like impossible standards. And it meant jail, just like that. So who's making money on that? Everybody but me.
Well, yeah. And the, one of the things that has been alleged over the years is that, that the judicial system is somehow part of the brokering of this, right? Like when you put someone, if you've sat in a courtroom all day and watched people being arraigned or sentenced or various things, usually, it'll be a lot of drug violations, and the judge, it's at their discretion. Are they are they sentencing you? Are they going to, sentence you to treatment? And if they do, why are they always picking that one place?
Yeah.
Some of these facilities, like Phoenix House, were always actually, they had a big deal back in the 70s to separate them from the government because they were using like government resources even to run their program. It came out like they were using, city council offices, and it was a lot. Yeah. And that still kind of goes on. They just, like I said, they know how to bury the lead. So, another red flag in a lot of them is, like in the case of adolescents, particularly, generally, in those programs, a lot of the kids are already wards of the state, because they, in the foster system, or they, about half of the residents at Phoenix House when I was there were there instead of juvenile prison, not just juvenile hall, but at that point, a lot of them were gang activity and such, and that was their alternative. But those of us who were not wards of the state, like myself, my mother signed me in. They did have my mom, unbeknownst to her, sign her parental rights over guardianship at that time.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
She probably didn't know what she was signing either.
She had no idea. I don't know that she would have minded at that point, but she didn't know.
Yeah.
I was a 16-year-old derelict, pretty much. But I'll say this, when she realized how bad it was there, she tried to take me out, and they threatened that she would have to go to court to do so to regain guardianship and remove me from the program. And of course, in a lot of cases, it's just so insurmountable, the resources for how to even navigate that. This is pre-internet, like how she even found it was through a tough love program that she was going to figure out how to help me. So she had no idea what she signed. And then, once I completed the inpatient portion, which was 18 months, and you have another year of what they call a live-out phase, where you come up to group. It's similar to the IOP or the some of the pain management places where they'll give you the medication or they'll give you the treatment, but if you come to, a certain amount of groups a week, still they can bill as, you being under their care.
Yeah, I was in those. The intensive outpatient is the IOP, and just for a frame of reference, when I was in it, and I think this is standard, it was 9 hours a week, which meant, and a little bit more, which was 3-hour group addiction counseling meetings, and then you had to meet their psychiatrist, who then would prescribe Vivitrol or naltrexone or whatever, and then you had to meet with an individual, and your entire life is basically taken over. And it's the only way I could have afforded my psych meds, because it was all done through the program. And then they urine test you at least twice a week randomly.
Now, I was the girl who did that. I worked at the IOP program here for about a year and a half, and I was the girl who had to watch you pee and process your urine.
Oh, geez.
And it's crazy how much
Yeah.
money is made off of those urine tests. That's one thing that movie just blew my mind. It was like several $1,000s.
Is that
test.
true, though? I mean, for that guy, really, wow.
Liquid gold, they call it. Right?
Yeah, they bill out they bill the insurance company $2,000 every time you get a piss test. That's
absolutely. Wow. And they bill most cases, like if you are at the IOP program, they're billing the state or the county or whoever they have their contract with their funding partners. So yeah, absolutely. And then they bill those at the highest rate. I mean, they are not cheap, and they can. I mean, they can't dispute the charge because it's what it costs. So that's why a lot of times in pain management or various settings like that, or in treatment settings, they excessively drug screen, and it's not even really recommended by the medical, the medical board or anything, that they test every time you come there. That's implemented by the practice, but usually because they can, get quite a bit of money from doing it. It's actually recommended that they don't when it comes to kind of compassionate care. But
yeah, the whole junkie hunting thing is so interesting to me. And when I first heard about it, it was because I was watching Dope Sick Nation and American Relapse with Frankie and Ali Severino. Frankie Bones, or so, I forget what they call him. And that was an eye-opener. And they didn't even really expose it as much as that Body Brokers movie. And I didn't realize that, I had just joked before that everyone made money but me. But actually, like...
You should have been making money.
Well, yeah, that there were all of
should
these...
have paid you.
That they were cutting the junkies in on it.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like corrupting a child in that they're in a state of mind where, they don't have the capacity to realize.
Yeah.
Right, it's a vulnerable state. And so, I mean, where it could sound like, oh, great, I get paid to do this. And but no, it's disgusting. And I mean, didn't it get... is there a law now? Do you think this is still going on?
They've started, they did start shutting places down that they could prove this was happening. Some of the ones that have been involved in some of the more deadly cases, like, I talk about, the way that a particular facility did it because it's my experience. But what's most common, I think you guys saw this in all of what you read and watched, was the practice of having brokers, other people in, like you and I, someone in recovery that they can exploit to recruit people to whatever treatment center they affiliate with. Some of them affiliate with a lot of them, like they have deals with a lot of them, but some of them are tied, especially celebrities. Sometimes they're tied to certain facilities.
Yeah. Like Brendan
and
Novak.
They recruit.
What's the difference between what he's doing and that? You know how he's like, he's a big famous guy who's now out about recovery. And I like Brandon Novak a lot. I'm not like trying to give him crap about it, but how is like...
What's he doing? Shilling for a center or something?
I mean, and he's very open about it. And I think, what do you think about that, Erin? Is that like a slippery slope? Like, should a guy like Brandon Novak be, recruiting people, or can this, for pay? I mean, does it matter that he only gets a flat fee, or, at what point is it
Well, he
not
gets a
good?
fee. I mean, I'll say this. I'm not going to say what anyone else should or shouldn't do. I don't know what their agreements are or anything like that. It looks the same. I'm not saying it is, but it looks similar. It's in that, it has that feel, and not just him. I mean, I'm just talking about,
Yeah, this is not against him. I like him a lot, actually.
Yeah, me too. But I know that this practice is in play to some degree with the way, that he's, sort of been implemented by the programs. And, from a business standpoint, it makes sense. That people are going to take his word for it, right?
And he could be helping a lot of people. That's probably,
and he probably is.
There's probably a lot of good going on there, and so why shouldn't he get paid? But I guess it's the predatory nature of
the predatory stuff
that he's not doing.
I don't see him in that same.
Right.
Personally, I don't see him in that same category of just being predatory. But I know I've come across lots of them being in, the recovery advocacy arena, and usually it looks like. Now, some of the more deadly cases have been where, it's too good to be true, right? Anything that sounds too good to be true. A lot of times it is, So they're saying, well, we'll pay for your airfare. We'll pay for this. We'll pay for that. It's going to be this amazing resort. The thing is, you have to test positive when you get here. So say you've been in a group home or a halfway house or an IOP program and you've been sober a while.
Right.
But you realize that, but you couldn't get into treatment, right? So...
You need to piss dirty though, or else they're not going to take you. You don't get the plane ride and the Malibu cliffs unless you piss dirty.
Seems counterintuitive.
Exactly, the equestrian whatever surfing, and then
horse surfing.
You sometimes won't make it there,
right?
Because it can precipitate a relapse, a full-on relapse that you're not going to go to treatment, or you don't survive that attempt to test positive when you get there, because sometimes it's, it's one, these days with fentanyl and all this things that are adulterating, the supply above and beyond just being dangerous in and of itself. It just,
Relapse for Cash, I just read.
Relapse for Cash,
by Amy Dressner.
And that was the article. That was the article in the, I believe it was the Fix that Amy did. Basically, they get money for everyone they recruit, and sometimes it's tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, we're not talking a little bit of money, which tells you how much the treatment program is getting from that patient. That they're going to give someone who recruited them $10,000 or $15,000 or $5,000.
They were saying something like when they ran the numbers in the movie that a 90-day stay was worth about $1 million, and then up from there. If you put in all the different, I mean, it seems like the whole thing is incentivized wrong from top to bottom, and
right. But is that capitalism? I mean, I'm not really against capitalism. I don't think any of us, some of us are, and that's okay. But that's
given the
so
clientele,
difficult.
It's awfully exploitative.
Yeah.
I mean, you're dealing with people
given the vulnerability.
No, that's true.
I mean, for example, do you recall the Kids for Cash scandal in Pennsylvania? There was a couple of judges on Luzerne County Court of Common Pleas who they ended up getting convicted because they were accepting money in return for imposing harsher juvenile sentences to increase occupancy at the for-profit detention centers.
Jesus.
So I guess if you're a judge and you try and broker and abuse your position, you go to jail and you lose your judgeship. But if you're outside a private citizen, it's perfectly acceptable behavior.
Yeah, well, we hold judges.
Well, because it's just business.
I mean, we do
you have
hold
a legal
them to a higher
contract.
standard, but it's just the whole thing is very sleazy and incredibly exploitative.
So,
right, and that's the problem is that a lot of things that are unethical aren't illegal. If
Right.
I think you guys well know.
That's right. So what's the solution?
And a lot of times people just want to do what's legal and required and nothing more. But in this field, it's, we're dealing with people and humans, and a lot of dual diagnosis or, just a lot of variables that make it where consent is not really always, when I worked in the treatment industry, one of the things I was pretty adamant about was if someone came in incredibly intoxicated, I only wanted them to sign whatever it took, because I was in charge of intake. I really wasn't comfortable getting them to sign documents while they were intoxicated or that were legally binding, things like releases of information and, they don't
have a power of attorney necessarily. Someone who's in there, taking care of them.
And we would go around, we would come back to it when they had sobered up, maybe later in that, after a few hours. But even that to me felt, like it could be, not legally binding at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, the lawyer in me is thinking of all kinds of ways to to attack this, and really through the tort system, I would think it would be a pretty compelling class action case.
Let's make one.
Let's
do an RMA class action lawsuit.
Listen, I've been looking for an attorney based on this personally. Because there are a lot of lawsuits coming down for a lot of these programs right now, and it's starting to become very clear. Especially, they're starting really with the teen, troubled teen industry, but it's all the same. It's all from the same rotten tree, really.
Yeah.
And so it's getting more attention, and it's as a matter of fact, Phoenix House. In 2019, the controller of the state of New York said, we're recommending prosecution again. Happens every few years because they're missing millions of dollars of taxpayer money, and we don't know where it is. And they gave it to corporate. Some of it they could see. They let CEOs, like they paid people severance or out of that, which was never not part of the deal with the government, or bought cars for corporate members and such. They had employees that one of the reports said that the state believes that the employees had purchased things like tobacco and alcohol with funds that had been meant for clients.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, there's always people screwing up, what could be helping, and it just drives me nuts. But my question is, what is the solution to all of this? Is there a solution? And is it just something we're going to have to slowly cope with and try and change laws? Or, I mean, are we stuck? with this kind of thing, just because people are shitty?
I think where we are, right now we are, but I think with people being more willing to speak out, that people aren't afraid to blow the whistle, people from inside that are willing to talk. We've got more ex-staff members and such. Like I know a staff member from Phoenix House that has been willing to, from when I was there, that verifies everything, as far as when I say, is this how it was? Because sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you think, like, am I just, like, do I just have this all wrong, right? And then to bring it to them and have them cry and say, like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and part of it is the shame
that
that's
they did
associated.
Not know.
The shame, part of this problem. I just had a brilliant thought. And because we were talking about the whole accountability of not necessarily being anonymous to every part of your life, it's because of this shame that compounds these horrible things happening, because you have a clientele who doesn't want anyone to know they're going through this, so they're less likely to make noise about it because they're already so shamed.
My name's out there. At this point in my life, I don't care, but there were lots of points in my life that would have mattered to me more than making it right. And for me, when I really, it was really only in the last maybe 5 to 10 years that I've been able to see the situation for what it is, partially because of my role in it. Even if it's that I didn't say anything. And so I had all this guilt that these other generations of people have been there since me. Yeah. And of course I know it wasn't my responsibility, but those of us who tend to carry more shame about things that aren't really ours to even, take on, that's formidable. That's, that keeps us quiet about a lot of things for a long time. And, I know it's not my job to save anyone else, but the facility I was in was closed down in 2015. I mean, it was open till 2015.
Wow.
When they had a bunch of police, various incidents that finally got the attention that they couldn't, that the police were involved in. So then they had reports. And when the Department of Social Services was contacted by the media, like, did you guys know these were practices? They said, well, the kids have always said this, but, look at them.
Right. Who believes
They're junkies.
Right.
They're criminal junkies. Like, most of the people there were not privately there. They were not voluntarily there. And of course, voluntary is all relative. I wasn't either once we signed in. But, that can quickly change. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, a lot of people, everybody that I am still in contact with from back then has had that moment that I've had where they realize,
wow, like, what have I done? Yeah. What have I been
and in our case, we were in an actual cult. Yeah. In our case, we were in, and to be able to really say that out loud was a really hard thing. And to see that I was, my mother was billed for my care because about halfway through, I mean, and this is all on my blog, this is all stuff I've shared about, but about halfway through that 1 year live out phase after I left, where you live independently, I was 18, but they still make all your rules. They tell you where you can live. All of that, I was kicked out and excommunicated probably about 6 or 7 months into that. And because I did not, quote unquote, complete my treatment, my mother was then billed something like $25,000.
Oh, wow.
Jesus.
They wouldn't even let her take me out when she wanted to.
Oh my God.
And I don't think she ever paid them, but, yeah, they were, I mean, they had her as creditors. It was a lot. And this was somebody who my care was already paid for because I was ward of the state anyway.
Right. And
I had insurance.
So that sort of brings me to kind of wrapping up, but I wanted to tell our listeners that Erin has this awesome blog, and she's done a lot of research, besides living through it, but like she's written some really great blog posts and articles, and
lots of expose if you like dirt.
Why don't you plug it? Well, where can they read your stuff? Because I want to post it on our page. I want to talk to you about that too. And where can they find you and all your writings and stuff?
So it's fallingphoenix.com, and that's my blog, and I contribute. I haven't contributed to it in a few weeks, but there's some of my story in it. If you go to the beginning, it starts with what it was like being in the program, but then there's more about the case against, like these are the facts, like things like, I don't know, Beyonce gave them $4 million in 2011. That's about what they're missing right now. Like, and one of their biggest violations ongoing is civil rights, things like LGBTQ There was a transgender, all of those things, a transgender patient that was discriminated against at Phoenix Health several years ago. And a lot of racist or allegations of racism. So it seems to me that I would have a hard time funding a program. I knew that about, people do not know.
Right. They don't know. And
they have a Derek Jeter Center.
That's crazy. Mm-hmm. Are you on the RMA private Facebook group? I think you are. I
am. I'm in there.
Okay.
You can find me under Erin Moore, and I wouldn't recommend following me on Twitter because
Twitter.
There's something really wrong with me sometimes. But that is my handle there is girl_recovery.
And
if you really want to do that to yourself today.
If someone wants to reach out to you or make a post, they can actually just post right in the private group. And if you have any questions for Erin, I mean. This is a great addition, and I'm hoping that we can get put some of your blogs, at least post links to it so people can read it. But
next time I want to talk to you about your experience with that Hare Krishna guy, because I have some experience with them as well.
Yes, yeah. I mean, who gets recruited by the Hare Krishnas while they're in a cult?
That's amazing.
They come up there to get you.
Yeah, that was a great story.
I'm spoken for, Well, thank you so much, Erin, for joining us. I think this was great. And another stellar edition. And for me, it's just really great to talk to you. I love talking to you. And this was great. So thank you so much.
Are the best.
Yay.
Thank you.
So we're going to do another one sooner than later, sort of as
sooner than this time. Yeah.
Yeah. Sooner than we're going to keep working it in. And it's just really great. So we'll talk to you soon. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Erin.
All right. Love y'all.
Love you too. Bye.
Oops, did I hung up?
You just hung up on her.
So
that was awesome.
For any of you folks that want to learn a little bit more about the background story of Synanon and how that all sort of morphed into current recovery, there is a podcast called Reveal, and they did a series called American Rehab. You might want to check that out. I'll put a link in the show notes. I will also link to Erin's project, a blog there.
And now we're going to just take a couple-minute break and get back into it with Recovery in the News and This Week in Weird.
Okay. It won't be a couple minutes for you. It'll be a couple seconds.
Okay.
Did you finish your Middle Ages recovery bathroom break?
Yes, I did.
Bladder of the Middle Ages.
What did you say? It's like a garden, like a bent garden hose. It doesn't come out. Yes. Urination in the Middle Ages.
Urination in the Middle Ages.
So, and now it's Recovery in the News.
Didn't know if we'd make it to Recovery in the News today, but here we are. Should I just let this play out for a while? Okay. Recovery in the News this week. You slipped that one in under the wire last time, and I didn't notice it until you mentioned it.
I'm like, someone is going to hear that and crack up, spit their coffee out on their dashboard.
Let's hope so. So, Recovery in the News this week was an article that comes by the way of Lifehacker, although it was really based off of a twat. The fuck do you call it? I don't use Twitter, but
tweet us a twat.
You've totally screwed up my vocabulary around Twitter. It was a tweet. Excuse me, a tweet.
From a twit
by a staff writer on The Atlantic.
What's the name of the art? What's the title, Mike?
Do you let your kids try your alcoholic drink?
Oh, good to hear the title. Thank you.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so a staff writer for The Atlantic, I guess, got on Twitter over the weekend and asked, or just threw out to the ether, when a little child asks you what you're drinking and it's definitely wine, what do you say? The response was quick and fairly universal. I say, it's wine, loads of people replied, with some adding that wine belongs in the category of grown-up drinks that they too can have when they're older. Your 7-year-old too can have wine when they're older.
Yes.
But others went a step further and said they quenched their kids' curiosity by letting them have a sip of their own wine, I guess.
My dad did that.
Mine too. It worked out well for us.
Yes.
The idea is if you give them a sip of wine or beer, chances are pretty good. I don't know where that science comes from. That they're going to think it's disgusting, thus ensuring they keep their grubby little hands off your booze. I like the way they characterize that for many long years, but others point out how this can backfire. It's long been debated whether allowing kids to have small and frequent tastes of alcohol satisfies their curiosity and makes them better prepared to resist peer pressure as they get older. I don't see how that would follow, or whether it helps them actually develop a taste for the stuff, causing them to drink it more heavily at an early age. A significant amount of parents believe it's fine and even beneficial to allow a sip here or there for kids as young as 9 or 10 years old. On the other hand, most experts will advise against it, citing research that indicates there is no benefit and may even lead to more problematic or risky behaviors.
It's a number of, what was it? An amount of water and a number of people. So this article is written incorrectly.
It's internet prose.
Hey,
and you're an English major, so stuff is going to drive you crazy.
It's a number of people and amount of water, not an amount of people.
Well,
go on.
A certain amount of people, are wrong, I think.
Yes.
Because tell me what's beneficial about giving small sips of poison to a 7-year-old.
So,
like, hey, Daddy's smoking a cigar. Would you like some?
Devil's advocate is, that they're going to think it's disgusting. They try it when they have a youth taste buds or whatever, and it revolts them. That's the thinking, maybe, and it's not so mystified. So they don't go crazy.
It depends
when
on what you're drinking. If you're drinking, cheap scotch, maybe that'll work. But if you're having like
Bartles and James,
for example, a fruity
wine
a wine cooler or a strawberry daiquiri or perhaps a pina colada, if you will.
Sure, I will.
Maybe the kids will think it tastes good, or maybe they have that certain predisposition to enjoying alcohol, or they feel like they want to push through and have another sip to see if what is so attractive about it. Because
why is this so
why do the parents
special?
Drink it all the time?
It's like our movies. Like my kids, my 10-year-old, even my 6-year-old. Like they know that these are movies. They're not allowed to. That's the downside to having Bluetooth connected to the. Right. Oh, you could kill the volume.
I could do that. It's the school calling. I wonder why.
Do you have to?
No, it's like the main.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Maybe they shut the school down. So, what were we just talking about? Kids drinking. Oh, our movies. So now they've got this thing in their head that when I'm older, when I'm good enough, then I can participate in watching these horrible R movies with violence, sex, and drugs.
Right.
And maybe it's sort of like that, and if. Because I'll let my kid, I will watch with my oldest son. I'll be criticized for this, but I watch, if he wants to watch like John Wick, which is extremely violent, I sat there and I watched it with him. And if there's something...
Is that like real violence, though? It's stylized, I wouldn't sit down and let him watch Caligula with me or something,
Yeah, I mean, the child has to have some grip on the difference between fiction and fantasy. And, I mean, fantasy and fact. And if it's per child, is your kid, do you think he can, like my younger one, not so much. I don't think he'll ever, be that younger kid who's kind of got an older mindset.
Not going to sit down, max down and watch The Shining with him anytime soon.
No, but my older one, yes. So, I mean, that's completely different from drinking. And like you said, we both got that. When I was a kid, my dad would just deify German Hefeweizen beer, and he would sit there with it. He didn't drink a lot, but when he just drank, he would sip it and like it was the nectar of the gods. He'd go, it's like mother's milk. Right. And that used to drive my brother nuts because he thought it sounded disgusting. Mother's milk.
It does kind of.
And then we would make a joke. It's like father's milk.
Well, I tell you, my son Ben, who is the same age as your son,
Big Ben.
2 summers ago, we were at a family reunion in Virginia, and he was drinking what I thought was chocolate milk out of a Solo cup. He was dipping his cookies in it and eating the cookies. And he's like, he's like, this is really good, but it doesn't taste like any chocolate milk I've ever had. And it turned out it was a Guinness. And he was dipping his cookies in the Guinness and eating them, and he liked it. And to this day, he has a positive association of Guinness with chocolate chip cookies.
I'm calling CPS.
And a good time.
I'm calling CPS.
Yeah, well, I should have called CPS on whoever was leaving the drinks lying around.
Interesting.
Was it me? It might have been me. I don't drink Guinness in the summertime, so it definitely was not me.
That I want that Guinness 0.0, the non-alcoholic Guinness.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, so therein lies like the danger of, they could have a negative association, but they could also form a positive association and a positive memory about it. And that's a problem.
It is,
You know?
but you're also fighting other kids. You're fighting other parents. Other here I am talking about
Parents.
English, and I said parents.
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 Like Lord of the Rings. What's that?
Yes.
Gollum. Parents.
Yes, my precious. Yeah. So our kids hopefully will not be alcoholics.
Anyway, I don't think it's a good idea, but you do you, right?
You do you. Recovery in the news. Recovery in the news. And now, week in weird. Oh, really? With that? You always do that. All right.
Wait.
This week in weird. Yes. UFO sighting sends man to the hospital. A man in Zimbabwe wound up needing medical attention following a UFO sighting, which was so unsettling that he actually fell from his motorcycle
Get the fuck
in
outta here.
fright. The weird incident reportedly occurred last Friday evening in the town of Chipinge as Richmond Mayambo was en route to his home at around 9 o'clock in the evening. The journey took a strange turn when he noticed an inexplicable object in the sky that he likened to a, quote, rocket with fire on its back. Despite doing his best to ignore the oddity and simply focus on getting home safely, the UFO suddenly emitted a, quote, deafening sound that shook Mayabo to such a degree that he was sent careening off of his motorcycle to the ground in panic and, in the process, badly injuring his leg. Looking back on the encounter, the man indicated that in the moment, he was certain that he was about to die. Of course, Mayambo survived the strange sighting and is currently recovering from the fall in the hospital. I don't know why this is so funny. I'm just picturing this guy in Mwambo, and he sees this, and he just falls off his motorcycle screaming.
I think Mayambo should have just admitted to his wife that he had a couple too many and fell off his motorcycle. That's what I think he should have done. Rather than, that story's kind of hard to sell.
You ride a motorcycle occasionally.
I do.
If so, can you imagine you're driving across the bridge, down the block, and there's this UFO? Like, what would you just fall off of your motorcycle screaming?
I would just stop and take a picture of it if I could.
It's funny because you can picture him riding his motorcycle, and then a corner of his eye, there's this UFO, and he's trying to ignore it, but a few minutes go by, and he just can't ignore it anymore. He just freaks out and falls off his motorcycle.
Yeah.
So that was...
Anyway, that's weird.
That's Week in Weird. Well, has it been a great show?
It has been a great show. It's been this week it actually has been a long show.
This has been, and
every other week you're like, it's a long show.
It's a long show.
Not a long
It's
show.
exactly the same.
This week is a long show.
That about does it for today. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Seriously, I want to say this to the people listening. I've been hearing from some of you guys on Facebook that you say that you're listening every week, and it means the world to both of us.
Yes, it does.
And it's so cool, and I'm so happy to know you guys. And hey, this is just a start, so strap in and strap it on.
Strap it on. We're taking you places you never expected to go.
You're coming in through the back. Oh, Lord.
Okay.
Visit us at middleagesrecovery.com. Join the discussion on our exclusive and private Facebook group. And Erin Moore's on there. And so, she's awesome. You can reach out to her. And yeah, that'd be cool if she would, someone who would.
Strap it on and talk to Erin Moore.
I'm so sorry, Erin. If you need to talk, don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media. We are not an addiction recovery center.
No, some of you thought we were, though.
That was my fault because I put it in the categories or something. So I took it out so people, call 911, please.
Don't send us a string of invectives like that one fellow.
Yes.
Invectives,
He's
whatever.
been banned.
Yes.
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, tweet us at TwatChuTwit. I've been Twittering more, by the way.
I have noticed.
So I'm on there,
You
guys.
need some retweets. Nobody's retweeting your
Nobody's
tweets.
retweeting. All right, I got to come up with something more clever. Apple Podcasts and wherever fine podcasts are sold, 5-star reviews will be read on the air. And we will see you next time.
Yes.
And as we say, non proficiat perfectum.
Progress, not perfection.
See you next time.
Be good.
Oh, Mr. Wide Awake drives a big old Chevrolet. every day.